Oh, we who believe in freedom will not rest. Oh, we who believe in freedom will not
Welcome,
rest.
welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining Motus Theater's Martin Luther King Jr. Day event.
And thank you to the Boulder Arts Commission, the City of Boulder Human Relations Commission, and the ACLU of Colorado for sponsoring this event. And of course, all of Motus's general operating funders for their generous support of this program. And thank you to all of you who contribute to Motus so that we can continue to make events like this possible. Although we're all joining from the comfort of our homes, today we do want to honor that Colorado stands on the land of the Arapaho, the Cheyenne, and the Ute.
Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that we are all probably processing a lot of pain and trauma due to the recent insurrection, COVID-19, racism, health, and economic fears, or having beloved family and friends in prison who are experiencing greater exposure to COVID-19 and yet are not getting priority for vaccination.
So let's go ahead and take 3 collective deep breaths to ground ourselves despite the pain and injustice we feel, because we are all here together to honor Dr. King's legacy, share stories about the need to transform the criminal legal system, and to be encouraged by Dr. King and the great civil rights leaders like John Lewis, who called us all to get into good trouble in the name of justice. So, ready? Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One last time. Inhale. Exhale. Thank you. My name is Tanya Titus. I am an undocumented immigrant. I am a monologist in Motus's Undocu-America series, and I'm the National Outreach and Education Director for Motus Theater, where we create original theater to facilitate dialogue on critical issues of our time. We use the power of art to build alliances across diverse segments of our community.
And I'm Juaquin Mobley, the Vice President of Community Works, Motus Strategic Advisor on the JustUs Project, and a formerly incarcerated monologist with the JustUs Project. One of Motus strategies to strengthen our community and country is to present performances where we ask people, often in positions of public leadership and in our communities and country, to stand in the shoes of an undocumented or formerly incarcerated Motus monologist and read their story aloud. The readers don't need to agree with everything they read in the story. They just need to be willing to suspend judgment, model courageous empathy, and see the world for a moment through someone else's eyes.
This afternoon, we will be sharing 2 monologues created in a Motus Monologue workshop with formerly incarcerated leaders in collaboration with Motus's artistic director, Kirsten Wilson. Brandon Wainwright will read his own story, and Daniel Guillory's story will be read aloud by Michael Dougherty, DA of Boulder County, and Jessica Howard, the Racial Justice Campaign Coordinator of the ACLU of Colorado. Earlier this afternoon, Daniel Guillory and the readers got together so Daniel could read his story aloud to them. And now they will have the opportunity to read his story back to him. Then the readers will be reflecting alongside the monologist on the impact of the story. And we truly hope that these stories will help us all more deeply understand the impact of the criminal legal system so that we can reflect and take action.
In between each monologue, we have the pleasure of listening to the musical medicine of the a cappella group Spirit of Grace of Flowbots fame. You may have heard them sing the national anthem at the Nuggets game last fall. They have chosen short musical responses to honor each monologuist and the civil rights legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. After the monologue reading, Motus is thrilled to have nationally and internationally acclaimed slam poet Dominique Christina, who will be reflecting on Martin Luther King Jr. Day in relation to her own family civil rights legacy. She will also be reading a poem inspired by Motus JustUs monologues.
We are going to begin, but first I'll put in the chat a link to support Motus Theater. If you haven't chosen to support Motus already, we think that after you hear the JustUs stories, you will want to support our work so we can bring the JustUs stories to schools, theaters, churches, and communities across Colorado and our country. And thank you to those of you who have already donated.
Great. Now, Spirit of Grace singing a song in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights leaders who courageously fought for the rights of African Americans, and with that, the value of American democracy. Spirit of Grace, take it away.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that our dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat at night our weary feet come to the place for which our Father sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our wearies, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in thy path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our God, true to our God, true to our native land, land, land.
Wow, absolutely beautiful. And now I want to introduce my brother, my fellow Motus Justice monologist, Mr. Brandon Wainwright. Take it away.
All right. Thank you, Joaquin. Thank you, Spirit of Grace. That was beautiful. Definitely appreciate that. Excuse me one here. First of all, my name is Brandon Wainwright. I am speaking on behalf of JustUs League. I'm a fellow monologist. Also formerly incarcerated as well. About Dr. King, I would say in the nearly 6 decades since Dr. King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech, there's been great progress in advancing equal rights, yet there remains much work to be done to end police brutality and dismantle racism. I'm sharing my monologue today because in the immortal words of Dr. King, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And with that being said, this is my monologue, my autobiographical monologue entitled, Trying to Live, I Lost My Life. At birth, I was named Brandon Marlowe Wainwright. That is the name my mother used, as well as the teachers at school. On the street, my name is Doug, D to the UB. And if you can't say that, just call me Young Black King. But on a serious note, I'm gonna tell you that 90% of the people from my hood are considered failures. And I'm supposed to act like I can't be part of the 10% because of the way you think of me and because my ways are often too ignorant. I mean, I have a young mother, a young father, brothers and sisters at home, barely food in the fridge, hell, water, depending on if it was on. I'm surrounded by old heads, youngins, walking around with handguns, and they won't hesitate to let me know what they think about my honor roll ass if I can't fight. So school is kind of a sanctuary, if you will, or a safe haven. It's like, look, I can be myself, I can be a nerd, I can be a thespian, shoot. I mean, I can do sports, I can do whatever I want while I'm in school because I'm living my life. This is how I want to live. This is how I want to live. But outside of school, I put on a whole other mask. I fight and I fight and I fight. And I'm Dub. And me and my gang, we do what we do, from big time shoplifting, small time drug dealing. I mean, like I said, in my hood, 90% of the people are considered failures. And they are the people whose approval I need in order to survive. And you might not think the guys I hang out with, or you might not like the guys that I hang out with, but they are the only ones who have my back, and I have their back. And this is not the life I want to live, but it is the life I have to live. Things become harder when I turned 16. I stood up for my brother against my father, and for that, I am out of the house. I'm no longer his mouth to feed. From 16 on, there isn't anyone giving me a roof, clothes, food. I had to go and do that with the help of my gang. And that's why I said I had to live. I had to find a way. And then I was losing my life because at a young age, trying to be an adult, you know, you can't really have a life. You got to kind of give that up. But still, I stay a star student, you know, honor roll, state champ, athlete, you know, blah, 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 against all odds. I still kept my cards. I kept my cards. I mean, I held on to mine. And by senior year, it is very clear. I'm going to be part of the 10% that makes it. I mean, that makes it. Women, money, cars. I'm headed to the NFL. I mean, I have a full ride scholarship. I'm choosing the offers. I'm even going to be prom king. Could you imagine, right? So with all this headed my way, did anyone ask me why on January 12th of my senior year, I decided I shoplifted. Let's just say I robbed 6 video stores in one night. 6 in one night. Instead of working hard to prove what a terrible criminal I was, did anyone consider I might also have been a young man having a hard time and needing some help? Did anyone sit in a circle with me and say, Brandon Wainwright, what were you thinking? 6 stores in one night. You must have known you was going to get caught. For a few $1,000s, you threw away a 6-figure full ride scholarship. You're going to be part of the 10%. Why, Brandon? No, they didn't ask. They charged me with robbery. They kicked me out of school. They made an example of me. Nobody acknowledged that I had to be the best at being Brandon Wainwright, star athlete, star student, to make the 10% and thrive. And that I had to be the best at being Dub as well, to have shelter, food, and to survive. They didn't acknowledge that I was locked in a terrible split that put surviving and thriving at war with each other. They acted like Brandon, the high school vice president of the Future Business Leaders of America, was a lie. And that I had finally shown my true colors, Black. As if I was by nature essentially criminal. Nobody in the justice system or the school system cared enough to even ask why I did what I did. Nobody. And well, you know, it's a long story. It's a very long story, you know. But just let me say, at the moment I made that decision, I was exhausted by the fight and I didn't even care. You want to know why I didn't care? Because that night I was hurting and I didn't feel love. You know why I didn't feel love? Because I wasn't getting it from the parents who I thought had made me their son. They didn't come to my games. They didn't care I was on the honor roll, that I was going to college, that I had a scholarship. They didn't even have to pay for me to go. And they were busy fighting poverty themselves, fighting racism, fighting their own ignorance, fighting to survive. And tired of fighting with me and struggling with how to raise a young Black son in a place where the streets have so much power and parents have so little. Or you can just knock it down to the fact that where I was raised, you're either born with it or you're born without it, no matter what you apply that to. And I thought I'd rather be caught with it than without it. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. I needed money to live, for food, shelter, clothes on my back. And maybe to graduate looking nice in the prom king suit I was gonna buy with some of that cash. Yeah, it's a long story, but I'm not giving up. So instead of any help and support with dealing with the challenges I faced, I got a lifelong label as a criminal and more obstacles to overcome. I was already tired. And the fight just got harder, but I'm not giving up. I have 2 beautiful daughters, London and Anina, and a handsome son who is 8 months old. My son's name is Nasir, which means helper in Arabic, or the one who gives victory. So everything that I do from this point on is for my kids and for my family, so they will never go through what I went through, because I'm always gonna be here for them, whether physically or spiritually. I'm always going to be here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brandon, so much for sharing your story. While Spirit of Grace sings their musical response to the monologue in relationship to the civil rights movement, please share a few thoughts in the Zoom chat or in the Facebook Live comments about what most impacted you as you heard Brandon Wainwright's story. Here's Spirit of Grace.
Brandon, your spirit is strong. Your spirit is beautiful, and it is essential to our struggle. It is essential to our purpose. And we'd like to encourage you with this next song to never give up, because we need it. We need you.
We want you to know that we hear you, Brandon. And we know that it has to be hard to see news stories where judges slap boys on the wrist for raping because they don't want to ruin their lives, right? And you had everything going for you, and all you wanted to do was eat and look good at prom. Now, you went about it the wrong way, but you didn't rape nobody. So I give you a second chance. And I say, don't give up. This is for you, baby. We hear you. We love you.
And this goes out to every brother or sister who shares your specific struggle. We would like to extend this to them as well. I don't feel no waste time.
Come too far from where I started from. Yeah.
Nobody told me that the road would be easy, but I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. Oh, I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. Oh, I don't believe he brought me this far. 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 I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
We love you, Brandon. You gonna make it, baby. Don't give up. We won't give up on you either.
Wow. Always a pleasure listening to these young ladies. Next up, we actually got an individual who I was actually incarcerated with and met while incarcerated, Mr. Daniel Guillory, the Motus Monologist. Take it from here.
Hello, my name is Daniel Guillory, and I've been honored to be a part of this panel and to be a monologist to share my story with you of my experience with the criminal justice system and the ways that they have been criminal in the name of justice. And with that, I'd like to introduce DA Michael Dougherty and Jessica Howard. I'd like to introduce them with much honor and anticipation to hear their aspect on this auspicious occasion, which is Dr. Martin Luther King Day. So with that, take it away, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Daniel. I feel so honored to be a part of this and to share your story with everyone. The last time I went to jail, I had been in there about 18 months while I was fighting my case. I called my mom. Yo, mama, you guys want to bail me out? She said, well, let me talk to your sisters and see if we can get up the money. And she talked to my sisters and they said, no, ma, he's up to the same thing. He's going to get out and go right back to the drugs. So we ain't in. But my mom said, well, I'm going to come get you. She went and got a loan and came and got me. And I was strong with the word and I meant what I said. I was done with crack.
After my mom bailed me out, I went to pick up my car that had been impounded while I was in jail. Right before they had arrested me, they had searched my car, tore it up. I mean, tore it up. I had a nice Cadillac and they pulled everything out of it that they could, but they hadn't found no dope in the car. I was finally arrested for what they found in my house. I drove my car home and I was slowly putting the insides of it back together when I found a pipe under the front seat with a big old rock right next to it. And I'm thinking, did they set me up? I mean, they had searched my car up and down, even looked in my spare tire, and the dope was right there under the seat, just clear as day.
I picked up that rock in that pipe and I put it in my pocket. I said, no, I ain't going to do it. But I didn't throw it away. I knew I should have just thrown it away, but I didn't throw it. And later on that day, I broke it up and hit that thing. Boy, and Scotty beamed me up. Woo! As soon as I got beamed up, here comes my mom. I mean, as soon as I took that hit, not 20 seconds later, she came home and she saw me.
I saw the tears in her big old brown eyes. And I said, Mom, I bet if you'd known this, you'd have left my ass in there. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and she said, no, baby, I still would have come and got you. Sometimes when I tell this story, it makes me weep, just recalling those words. No, baby, I still would have come and got you. Oh my God. You could have kicked me or cussed me out, but that kind of blatant love makes you butt naked, raw, and vulnerable. There's no defense. It makes you defenseless.
Anything else I could have handled. Come on, bring it on. You're a liar, a failure, an addict, worthless, a criminal. That's all you got? Yeah, I could stand up to that. But love and grace will lay you out, butt naked, no clothes on. Oh my God. That is what made me think differently and the pivotal point that led me to be drug-free today.
That's the thing that we got to convey to society. It's when a person is broken, messed up, and deserves love the least. That is when they need it the most. And that grace is the thing that will give people the 360 right there. The key is helping people to remember their importance, understand their magnificence, and then invest in helping them reach their potential instead of punishing them.
But the criminal justice system takes all of our shortcomings and faults and it magnifies them. That's all they look at. They take the smallest part of us and make it the biggest part of our existence, when all this good stuff is just sitting right here, just waiting. It's dormant, it's waiting to grow, but it's not put in the right environment.
And then instead, they send us down a dark tunnel into a place of violence at every intersection, a gladiator school where you learn how to place magazines around your belly in case someone tries to stick you. You learn to always step out of your pants if you sit on the toilet in case you're attacked. And when you act out in that violence, they send you further down into the hole where there are no people, just an overflowing toilet, rats, and isolation.
If you drop an oak tree seed into a concrete world, it's still alive in there and vibrant, but it's not growing. It's just dormant. If you take it from there and drop it in a decent place where there is enough sun, earth, nutrients, you don't even have to plant it. Just put it somewhere and it possibly grows into that thing that will take off on its own.
The fact is, all of us in prison are human beings who committed crimes, but that is not our truth. We are not ontologically criminal. That is not our essence. And instead of helping us to return to the full truth of who we are, the criminal justice system takes away our names, gives us DOC numbers, robs us of our dignity, freedom, and happiness, and most of all, the potential to be our best selves that we could have been if someone had tried to nurture us instead of neuter us. And how can it change as long as the justice system continues to lie about what it's doing to us?
They give us this piece of paper that says, the court is sentencing the defendant to incarceration for 10 years of rehabilitation and is fitted towards the sentence. Rehabilitation, my ass. There is no rehabilitation. When you send us to the Department of Corrections, you're making us more incorrect. There's not a sliver of corrections in that place.
Those of us telling our stories as part of the JustUs project are fairly new to this whole idea of restorative justice. But we know that telling the truth and taking responsibility for the harm we have caused is a big part of it. And we have reflected as a group in our writing process on that harm. But we were also asking the criminal justice system itself to sit in circle with us and hear the ways we have been harmed, because it itself has been criminal in the name of justice. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Daniel and, of course, Michael and Jessica. Remember now that when Spirit of Grace sings their musical response, you can share a few thoughts in the Zoom chat about what most impacted you as you heard them read Daniel Guillory's story. Here's Spirit of Grace.
First of all, I'd like to thank D.A. Dougherty and Jessica for reading those stories and for having the strength to read something like that. And then I want to thank Daniel for surviving that story and for making it through.
Daniel, we hear you and we love you. And the courage to share your story and the strength it must have taken to fight your battle are both so inspirational. And we do know that you can't come out of a battle without battle scars. And so we would like to offer this next song contributed to your healing and the healing of every one of our brothers and sisters out there who are in need of it. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. Sometimes I feel like a mother's child. Sometimes I feel like a mother's child. Sometimes I feel like a mother's child, a long way from home, a long way from home. There is a bone in Gilead to heal the sin sick soul. There is a bone in Gilead to heal the sin sick soul.
Thank you so much to Spirit of Grace. Y'all are seriously lifting up the music of civil rights movement, and it's great that you are here to inspire us to keep moving towards justice. Thank you. Those of you on Zoom will actually now see a poll sort of pop up on your screen asking the level of impact of hearing these stories. So go ahead and take a moment to submit your answer. And in the meantime, I'll highlight some of the powerful reactions to the stories that you yourselves wrote on the chat. So for Brandon Wainwright, I saw some beautiful comments, and some of them highlighted how great it is to have a reminder to believe in our young people, especially when they make mistakes. And of course, praising Brandon's vulnerability and compassion. And for Daniel's story, they highlighted their agreement to the lack of rehabilitation in this system of incorrections and the power of grace and love. So thank you all for sharing your comments in the chat.
Thank you all. And now I would like to ask the readers what most impacted you as you read aloud Mr. Guillory's story. Jessica and Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. When I read this story, it is the story of my family. It's the story of my grandmother, who, as a single mother, raised 5 children, but 4 of them struggled with addiction, including my own father. And just thinking about the many times, when my uncles struggled and were in and out of jail, how many times people told my grandmother to just walk away, and yet still, as a mother, of course she wasn't, and that's because you see qualities in your children that sometimes we don't see in ourselves. And it has me thinking of this quote, ironically, from Dr. King, and that is, there can be no deep disappointment where there is not deep love. And it just really, it reminds me of her legacy of the power of redemption, and how sometimes it really just takes one person in our lives to see that in us, for us to, even when we falter, to get back. But usually, again, that's within our family. But what happens when you don't have family, to do that? Because we know that the system that we are currently working with is not a system of rehabilitation. It's not a system of redemption. And so asking ourselves, where have we gone wrong in that? And how do we move towards a society that better reflects our values? How do I help move a society that better reflects my values as a mother who believes in the redeeming qualities of her son, or the values of my grandmother who believed in the redeeming qualities of her children, even until her dying day. It spoke a lot of truth in terms of my family's experience, and just for me, a blessing and a reminder of my grandmother, and what she left. And I'm just so thankful that Daniel was able to get to a point to share his story, and that we're honored enough to hopefully bring even more truth to it. So I hope we did it justice.
Yes, indeed. I'd like to thank both of you for honoring my story in such a in-depth and heartfelt way. Yes, you guys did my story honor, and I appreciate both of you. So thank you very, very much.
And Michael?
Daniel, the honor is really ours. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate the opportunity. It really is an honor to be with you today, Daniel. And when I read your story, your courage and your strength in confronting the challenges and struggles you've been through really are front and center. But also the courage and strength you have in writing this story and then sharing it with all of us today. For any of us, think of our darkest moment, and then think about putting it on paper and allowing people to read it to an audience. I think, Dan,
Yes.
you're a special person, as are your colleagues with Just Us. And
Thank you.
every time I'm a part of this event, I am so moved and inspired by what you have all suffered through and struggled through and overcome, and then allowing us to share from it, learn from it, and be inspired by it. Because, you know, we're listening to Dr. King's words at the start of today's presentation. He talks about how progress is only made from tireless effort. And although we could talk about the progress we've made in criminal justice reform, and including drug reforms over the last 4 or 5 years here in Colorado, we still have a long ways to go. And your
Yes.
story speaks to the power of addiction, because certainly when you told your mom that you weren't going to get back in trouble, you meant that.
I did.
You meant
Yes.
that. And then you see how quickly the drugs took a hold again. And that
Yeah.
happens
Yes,
time
it
and time
does.
again, unless we support people and help people when they're ready. And we need to do a far better job of that in the criminal justice system and in our communities.
Yes.
And I think Jessica really hit on something that was moving to me, which is the role of your mom. But for your mom, where are you today? And that's a
Heaven knows.
lesson and a reminder to all of us parents, right? I mean,
Yep.
your mom saved you and allowed all of us to be a part of you today. So I'm really struck by that and being able to read your story. So thank you, Daniel.
You're welcome. Yes, I just want to reiterate it's that, and you know, I believe that America is a barometer for the world, because we have a segment of every part of the world right here in America. And we need to inject into society this aspect of grace, just being gracious. Just because we have a right to do a thing doesn't make it right. And because of my mother's grace that she imputed towards me, it literally revolutionized the way I thought of myself. When she saw this value in me and said, "No, baby, I still would have come and got you." Even to this day, that renders me, I don't know, it overwhelms me with a sense of well-being. I mean, that grace, it's the thing. It's the thing, and it really is inexplicable when you give someone something that they do not deserve. That's what grace does. And mercy makes sure that you don't get what you do deserve. So with that, I'll close. But thank you both very much. You honored my story. And yes, indeed, it
Thanks,
was
Peter.
very difficult. It was very difficult. And I have to thank Kirsten for guiding a group of hardened criminals like we were. When we first came in there, we didn't want to touch it. I mean, we still had the penitentiary mentality on us, and somehow, some way, she cracked that shell, and in a sense, rebirthed us. I mean, it's crazy. It was a healing process, and it was awesome. And I just want to honor Kirsten for the auspicious job that she did in helping us to attain this level of freedom.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jessica and Michael, for your feedback on that. Grace is a heck of a thing. It's a very powerful thing. It's often, it's not spoken of enough. And in that same breath, Mr. Guillory, I want you to just enlighten us on what most impacted you about having your story read today by both Jessica and Michael.
Well, I tell you, it impacted me. What impacted me most is to have people of influence, which both of these people are. They're very influential people in their worlds, and to see them slip on my shoes personally, it's inexplicable. To have someone in their position with their impact and their authority and stuff in their worlds to actually put their feet in my shoes is an honor. And I deeply, sincerely appreciate that. And I thank you both very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guillory. Thank you all, matter of fact. And now we will ask Mr. Dougherty and Jessica Howard how they hold Daniel's story from their respective roles as the DA and the Racial Justice Campaign Coordinator for the ACLU of Colorado. Ms. Jessica?
I mean, I think it doesn't go without saying, whether in Colorado or across the country, that Black, Brown, Latino, Indigenous folks overrepresent are across the board in our criminal legal system. For us, at the ACLU, what we do realize is that grace and redemption doesn't happen behind cages. It happens when you are with community. It happens when you are with family.
Yes.
And so, for us, at the ACLU, we think about that a lot. And so it just so happens around the same time, we are launching what's called the Redemption Campaign. And really what it is to work hard to release thousands of people who don't pose a public safety risk from Colorado prisons. And by doing that, we have to do it in large systemic ways. And in this case, that would be really urging our governor to use his clemency powers in order to release people who have, if they were sentenced today, wouldn't be serving nearly as much time or serving time at all for what they, were sentenced before. I think a lot of times when we work on legislative fixes, particularly when it comes to our criminal legal system, we think about it in terms of forward thinking. Okay, for now on, we will continue, to work towards reform. But what about the people that we're leaving behind and in the past? And so hopefully this campaign will really work on urging the governor to be more transformational about the way in which he uses his clemency powers, not only as a way to recognize that people do change and that people can, they are not, their mistakes, that there is something deep inside that just needs to be, to be nurtured, but also as a way to systemically address the racial inequities that we see in our criminal legal system that has led to this ballooning of mass incarceration. And so hopefully that is what, we're doing. So hopefully Kirsten will put up the link about the campaign. We are going to do an educational webinar to talk to people and to just ask people to join us. This is truly, if we are a people that believe in redemption, then we need to make sure that it's reflected in our systems and that, we are asking the folks that we elect to be held accountable to that.
Awesome.
And I certainly agree with everything Jessica just said. And what I would add to that is that we need to do a far better job as a state ensuring that people have the help and support they need in the community. Someone shouldn't have to hit the doors of a cell or the courthouse or go to prison to get help for a drug addiction or a mental health issue.
Yes.
Too often in the state of Colorado, that's exactly what's happening. So we have a mental health diversion program and a drug diversion program that's just starting up here in Boulder. We should have those in every county in the state of Colorado, but we also should have them just in the community. I think we do far too little to help people who are struggling with substance abuse disorders and mental health crises, and we need to do a far better job of that. And then one thing that I think is so important about this program is it highlights the support that formerly incarcerated individuals should receive when they come back to our communities. And again, as a state, we could do a far better job of that. And anytime I talk to people, I was on the prison reform committee last summer because of the pandemic. It feels like it was 5 years ago, but it was last summer. And talking to folks who are back in prison for the second or third time and time again, they say, if I had the support in the community, I would not be back here.
Exactly.
And us recognizing that it's the right thing to do, it's the compassionate thing to do, but it's also just a better way for us to conduct the justice system. So these stories that you shared today really highlight that need for me and inspire us to continue working on criminal justice reform because we have a lot of work to do.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for your answers to these very important questions. I want to share with you all that Motus sent national and international award-winning slam poet Dominique Christina the Motus JustUs Monologues, and she wrote her own poem inspired by and honoring their stories. So now we will share with Dominique Christina.
So I inherited a template of resistance, one that insists on nobility and the intelligent fight. Like John Lewis said, that good trouble. Martin Luther King was a troublemaker. He rattled the cage, he interrupted space. He challenged folks' ideas, their philosophies, their thinking, their ideologies. My Aunt Carlotta was 14 years old when she started interrupting space. One of 9 students chosen to desegregate Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, under the loose protection of paratroopers sent by President Eisenhower. I come from a long line of troublemakers. This day is about honoring those of us who continue that fight. And for so many of us, that fight is wrapped up in our relationship to the prison industrial complex. And there are a lot of stories born out of that experience. This poem is called Prison is No Place. In 1704, the first formal slave patrols started in the Carolina colonies. Before that, settlers appointed constables to police Native Americans and protect frontier cities from them. You know, guard the land that was stolen from the ones it was stolen from. Slave patrols and night watchmen became police departments. You need to know that. Because when we see red and blue lights, we see a lynch mob trying to form. We hear that old rumble, the one that would deny us our names. You draw your gun, we see a bullwhip. It's old. The fear, the loathing, the apprehension, resisting arrest is ancestral logic. Don't let them catch you. Can't let them catch you. We remember running barefoot in the woods, in the swamp, bare feet catching every shard that ever was, running. Don't let them catch you. Can't let them catch you. Let me see your license and registration, the yawp of dogs hot on our heels. Step out of the car, please. Overseers snapping twigs in hot pursuit. Put your hands behind your back, crack of the whip. Put your hands up, the smell of burning flesh. You call it law and order, we call it terrorism. You say, land of the free, then feed us the rotten fruit of capture. The police were fathered by slave catchers, you need to know that. That's an unblessed legacy no matter how you dress it up. Prison is code for plantation, and prison is no place. The toilets don't work. The water ain't clean. You can hear the rats scratching in the walls. Solitary confinement till words leave you. Can't remember simple ones like love, like goodbye. Language is slippery when you don't use it. When nobody speaks to you because everybody is shrieking. When no letters come, language is a graveyard of carrier pigeons. The rotting meat of unsaid things that make you curse God or cleave to him. You give up on sleeping. Wonder if you should make a shiv. A boy last week was murdered in his cell. The COs laughed about it at lunch. Your DOC number replaces your name. Your mama can't make the long bus ride to visit. You're beginning to forget her face. Your commissary is always empty. You barter for cigarettes and time on the phone, tying, wrapping phone books around your waist to avoid being stabbed on your way to the yard. Prison is no place. You hide your feelings there. Can't fall apart there. When you get out, it's the same way. Your family needs you, your people need you, the community needs you. It takes you years to learn how to hold a bruise, how to call it by its name. But you borrow from the lineage of Lazarus, kept your head in the lion's mouth, trying to prove that the cosmic fight of manhood is a dark altar held up by the bones of whoever is strongest. Prison is a skeletal place. Prison is no place. You learned the death rattle religion of solitary cells, the bruised clergy of convicted men, the ones who made a mistake and got pinned to it, the ones who hurt soundlessly, roaring their spite in silence. Prison is no place. You need to know that. Some of us make it out. The raw material of possible, yeah, some of us make it out and unlearn the hurt. You need to know that. How impossible we are and how fastened to history and hope. You need to know that. Though bruised and war-walloped, some of us make it out. A constituency of second chances, running. Don't let them catch you. Can't let them catch you. Running. Free.
Thank you so much to Christina, Dominique Christina. That was incredible. And now Spirit of Grace will be singing their musical response to Dominique's poem. So remember to please share a few thoughts in the Zoom chat about what most impacted you as you heard Dominique Christina read her poem. Here's Spirit of Grace.
You know, we appreciate Dominique Christina's poem, and we appreciate her because we know her cousin Carlotta, and we know her cousin Carlotta's her cousin Lisa Downing, and we know Lisa Downing's father who fought at Pearl Harbor, and we know her family has been fighting this struggle for generations upon generations. And so we just want to say thank you so much for sharing it. It was so beautiful, so powerful.
Dominique Christina, artist to artist, your art is beautiful. Your heart is beautiful. You stated that Dr. King was a troublemaker. And as troublemakers, we fully receive and support you in unity. We revere, support, and join your unrest. Don't rest.
Oh, we who believe in
We
freedom
who believe
will
in
not
freedom
rest.
will not rest.
Oh,
No.
we who believe in
We
freedom
who believe
will not
won't
rest
until
until
it
it comes.
comes.
Oh no, we who believe in
We who
freedom
believe
will
in
not
freedom will
rest.
not rest.
Oh, we who believe in
We who
freedom
believe
will not
won't
rest
rest
until it
comes.
comes. Oh, until the killing of white men, white mother's sons, is the same as the killing of black men, black mother's sons. Oh, we who believe in freedom, we will
freedom
rest.
will not rest.
We who believe in freedom will not rest until it comes. Oh, struggle myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way won't rest.
Will not rest.
Whoa,
No.
we who believe in freedom will not rest until it comes. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
So in the chat area, if you can put what most impacted you as you heard Dominique Christina's poem. And second of all, I would definitely want to thank Spirit of Grace again for the power of your voice, as well as Miss Dominique for the power of your poetry. And thank you for, just being courageous. I also want to thank the JustUs monologuists for being courageous and sharing their truth to transform the criminal legal system. And for the readers who modeled civic hospitality by deeply listening and reading the words of a person whose life was impacted by the criminal legal system. And all of you who activate your power and join Dr. King, John Lewis, and everyone on stage today to be part of the good trouble out of which true justice for all can prevail.
Before this performance aspect of the event officially ends and we go into a Q&A segment, and we have a final song from Spirit of Grace, we are going to ask Jessica Howard to share some actions that we might take together. So there's a link to some actions in the chat function as well. Jessica Howard.
Yeah, definitely. Again, thank you so much to everyone who put on this program. Spirit of Grace, you are amazing, and then Dominique is amazing and just awesome. Again, so much thank you to Daniel and Brandon for allowing us to be a part of your storytelling. So, I mean, I really just have, one statement to say. It's time to bring our neighbors home. We have to get folks out of jails and prisons. This is not a way to run our society. And so certainly, we have a fact sheet, in terms of some of the things that we work on. But again, as I was talking about the redemption campaign, if folks, use the link, they can definitely see videos that, we actually had help with the Denver Broncos to put together, lots of facts about, what clemency is, what we want to use it for. Again, truly the power of redemption to begin to shift away from this, carceral state. It's overdue. It's time, and I think COVID has really shown us just how bad it can get. We are definitely looking at in Colorado over 50% of folks who are in prison are now impacted with COVID. So it really is time. So the take action is to contact the governor and to have him use his clemency powers in a systemic way to bring folks home. We have places like Kentucky who have used, their governor has used his clemency power to bring 900 folks home. And yet our governor has only used his clemency to bring 4 people to do that. We know there are so many people in our prisons where it's time for them to come home and it's been overdue. So that is my ask and take action to you, is to contact the governor, share what redemption means to you, and that we want it applied to our most vulnerable, one of our most vulnerable populations in our society, and those are people who languish in cages. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And we now do have a few minutes for audience questions for Juaquin Mobley, Brandon Wainwright, Daniel Guillory, DA Michael Dougherty, and Jessica Howard from the ACLU of Colorado. So you can go ahead and submit your questions to the Q&A feature where I will sort of raise them up to the panelists. And while we wait for you to submit those, I just want to highlight that the links have been shared in the chat. That was hard. For ACLU's redemption campaign, as well as the link again with more facts and information about the criminal justice system and how you can be an agent for change. So you can find those in the chat. And while you enter all of your questions throughout the program, I did see that there were already 2 questions floating around. So I'll just say that for our panelists, those of you that are going to answer the questions, you don't have to answer every question. And if a question is addressed to someone specifically, I will let you know. So how about we start with, is there a place for restorative justice in the criminal system that's not just about kids or youth?
Absolutely. There's definitely a place for restorative justice within the adult world, as well as in the adolescent world. I mean, a lot of the stuff has already taken place. A lot of things are happening that are transformative in the courts. And as an alternative, before filing charges, individuals are now getting the opportunity to give a little bit of context around what exactly happened. And as a result of that, there's a lot more proactive policing. There's a lot more, I would hope that because of this program that there will be a reduction in people getting, I guess, not so much arrested, but a reduction in people getting prosecuted.
Thank you, Joaquin. And thanks to those of you that have already started to submit your questions. I really appreciate it. The next one that I saw floating around in the chat was about the shift in our administration. So the question says, how are all of you feeling about our country just being 2 days away from a new administration? Are you hopeful?
I mean, certainly I think compared to probably the last 4 years, that there's probably, definitely a bit of hope. Certainly though, to be honest, there's certainly concerns. We don't, believe that policing is the response to everything that goes awry. And yet, we understand that, the incoming administration wants to put more money towards policing, which, really what that means is all it will do is mean more policing for vulnerable populations, Black, Brown, people who are houseless. And so certainly I know, at the ACLU, we are going to continue to be vigilant and continue to raise our concerns and voices when we think that policy decisions are being made that may do more harm than good. So certainly, sure, more hope, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to stop doing the work. It still continues.
And if I can chime in there, we've heard this story before, right? Going back into, I believe it was 1994 with the Bill Clinton crime bill. There's definitely is some concern from a lot of people from my community, as well as a lot of my colleagues. So that level of uncertainty is going to remain there. However, the fact that a lot of individuals are speaking to a lot of what's going on now is really giving us a little bit more understanding and giving us a chance to actually implement some of these plans that we have as far as, getting involved in transformative justice.
Thank you both. There's a lot more questions now than there were before, so let's see if we can get through some of them in the next couple minutes. Has Governor Polis been open to the conversation about clemency?
I definitely think, particularly for our campaign, it's still very much in the nascent stages. Again, we at the ACLU have been speaking up about this, and certainly I think what has been helpful is that we're not the only, rebel rousers out here talking about clemency, but we have community doing it as well. And that we have, NFL players even speaking out about it. And so I just continue to believe that the more of us that speak out about it, that's not just, kind of your mainstay organization that's of course going to speak out about it. I think the more I believe that we will hopefully be able to shift thinking, for the governor that this is a good systemic approach to address the many concerns that we see in our system.
Thank you, Jessica. And there are a few questions for the monologuists, so I'll sort of put them all together. Could Brandon and Daniel and Joaquin tell us a little bit about the process? What kinds of things did Kirsten do to create a safe space? How long have y'all been working with Kirsten? What did that look like?
Absolutely. I'll start it off. I'll be real brief. First and foremost, she got us out of our comfort zone. As Mr. Guillory mentioned before, just from the environments that we come from, being incarcerated, we have our guards up. In order to have a breakthrough, you got to bring those guards down. So she was very skillful and crafty in finding ways to get us to let our guards down without us even knowing. And as a result of that, we had a cathartic experience in there, and a lot of us has changed and became better men because of it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. And secondly, I have to agree with Joaquin there, because she was crafty. She did it in a way where we didn't realize we were bringing our guards down. And, we were very, very set in our ways when we came there, and standoffish. And before you know it, we was hugging each other and sobbing. And I mean, this was a long drawn out, this didn't happen fast. This is over months. I mean, and it's just incredible and so enlightening and liberating, because when we formally came in there with our guards up and everything, it limited our worlds. I mean, we literally put limitations on how far we could go, and when we dropped those guards, the limitations were dropped. And it's so true. Every single limitation that we have in this life, every single one of them are self-imposed. And so in essence, she taught us how to stop limiting ourselves. And so with that, I congratulate her, and I congratulate my colleagues, my fellow monologists, because they have become lifelong friends with me, that in whom I care deeply about and I love.
And I would definitely say, just to chime in real quick before we move on, the process was very, very, very emotional, especially for me. And with Kirsten being there, she definitely created that safe space, because I was totally against it coming in. And I didn't want to open myself up to anyone. I didn't want to give any of that information out. I felt like I was, pretty much going against the street code, if you will. So it was just like, so I didn't want to have anything to do with it. But, my brother Joaquin, and, he's telling me, everyone else is pretty much doing the same thing you're doing and going through the same thing. And then, like I said, with Kirsten, she pretty much softened the blow for everyone, letting us know, like, hey, what this is our space. This doesn't leave here. Everyone is going to be, feeding off of each other. We're all going to read it in front of each other. We read each other's stuff. We had to look each other in the eyes and actually read. So that was really a hard part. So she literally tore every single wall that we had built up. She tore it down. And throughout the process of us writing in the journals, we had to write something like every single time we came in. And it took a while, but she was able to help us piece that together, piece our whole story together to become one story. And, that way we could present it to the masses and for you guys. And so that way it'd be easier for you to understand, like, not everyone goes through the same thing, but it all has to do with the same thing, if you will. So she definitely brought it all around for us. And I thank you, Kirsten, so much, because it definitely made me a better person and a lot more emotional. I was very hard at first.
I love it. Oh, I just wanted to say that they're talking about Kirsten Wilson, who's the artistic director of Motus Theater. leading some JustUs workshops. Did someone else want to pop up? I don't know what I interrupted.
Okay.
Oh, okay, great. Well, thank you all for sharing. That's amazing. One of the other questions that popped up is, what is your opinion about Jared Polis's decision not to prioritize inmate COVID vaccinations?
I would like to say that kind of indicates, where we are at as far as legislation, as far as the way the general public thinks, and more importantly, the way the higher courts think. So although we've came far, right, as far as dealing with this particular issue and this matter, it's really indicative of showing where we're at specifically. I mean, in response to this COVID-19, I mean, you're literally trapped in there in a cell. You're open for exposure. And for those who have very, very petty crimes that are back there on PVs, why not
Yes.
let these individuals out so that we can ensure their safety? I read a number somewhere, and I can't think of the actual number, but the individuals that are getting COVID in there and actually dying is overwhelming. I'm very concerned about this. I lost both my grandparents to COVID-19. So this is nothing to play with, and I definitely think that him and his staff should take this a little bit more serious.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're disappointed because again, it just doesn't really reflect the reality of what is happening in our jails and in prisons. And, we have to say no one deserves to die of COVID because you're trapped in a cage and can't, distance or anything like that. What we know is that COVID is brought into the prisons by people who are in the community, and there's nothing that they can do to mitigate that. And so, particularly for those who are medically vulnerable and older in our prisons, like it's just we can do better. We can prioritize just as we do for other folks who are medically vulnerable or older outside of our prisons and in our jails. I mean, particularly our jails, you have to think that, a lot of folks who are in jail have not been sentenced. And so they are legally innocent. The reason why they are there most of the times is because they cannot afford to get out of jail. And so what are we doing when we're saying that, oh yeah, you're legally innocent. You can't afford to get out because you're too poor. But we're going to leave you susceptible to this disease. And so again, we just have to really ask ourselves, if that is not what we want, then we need to demand more from our elected officials, even at the very top of when it comes to our governor.
And if I could just say one more thing. I'm sorry. I was
No,
just going to say
please.
real quick.
No.
Just imagine you get picked up on a driving infraction, and you end up catching COVID and potentially dying. That is crazy to me. So essentially, you've got a death sentence for a driving infraction. We definitely got to make some changes.
And that is just one small example of the horror stories that take place in the incarceration system. There are so many horror stories. I saw this one young fellow come in there, 18 years old. I don't know. He had a couple of months. I don't know what his crime was, but he had a couple of months. And within that time, and I seen this with my own two eyes, within that time, he got turned out, he got raped, and then somebody, they violated his spirit. And then someone else tried to do the same thing, and he stuck the guy and killed him. And now this 18-year-old guy is in there for the rest of his life. And I saw that with my own two eyes. This little innocent kid come in there. I don't know. He did something petty, but in my eyes, he didn't deserve to be sent to prison. And you know that place that they pray on the weak and the young, and they prey on those. And there is it's just it's a I don't know how that poet wrote that poem so distinctly, because she described that prison environment to the T, and I don't know how someone who has never been there could describe it with such in-depthness. And yeah, that poem was freaking awesome. But I just wanted to chime that in.
I know we want to close out soon, but I wanted to ask a final question of DA Michael Dougherty. What are your thoughts about defunding police forces in Colorado and around the country?
Well, as we continue to live through this challenging period in our country, I think the silver lining of the pandemic is going to be there are lessons learned that we could take forward with us. So just to follow up on the jail population question, for example, we have to recognize exactly what Jessica and Joaquin were saying, that individuals who are incarcerated can't isolate, wear masks, distance themselves, and so on. In response to that, here in Boulder County, we lowered the jail population from 500 on an average day to 250 or less. So last week we were at 211. So really part of the question has to be, what lessons are we taking forward with us? Not just are we doing in response to the pandemic, but what are we learning from the pandemic to make the system work better? And with regards to that question, I think some of the challenges and anger that we've had to go through in this country over the past year, we have to look hard at that and look in the mirror and analyze how we can work the system better. Quite frankly, I think saying defund the police is too simple a phrase, because we as a state rank 48th in the nation, 48th in mental health treatment being available in the community. And we need the state to take ownership of that and do a better job funding that. And it's not simply about shifting funds around, but making a better investment in the people of this great state. We also have to allow local law enforcement the freedom and the support to have what Joaquin talked about earlier, which is law enforcement assisted diversion. So law enforcement on the street, not having arrest as the only option, but having mental health co-responders as part of their team, and also diversion on the street. So they don't have to arrest people and put people in the system. So in Boulder County, we have 9 law enforcement agencies. I think roughly 5 or 6 of them now have co-responder models and law enforcement assisted diversion. All of them want to have it. And if they had the resources, they would. And then throughout the state of Colorado, we need to take those kinds of steps. So it's more than just talking about reallocating resources that exist within law enforcement, and instead recognizing the impact, and as these gentlemen have illustrated today, the damage that the system can have, and then minimizing the footprint to the extent we can. But it's going to take more than just one area. It's going to take a wholesale commitment on behalf of the state of Colorado. And I'm excited for us to take that step. And I'm really very hopeful for that.
Thank you so much for you and for everyone for sharing all of your insights to these questions. I know there were a couple more that we didn't get to, so I encourage all of you listening to join us at future JustUs performances to have more of your questions be answered. At this moment, I just want to say that there will be another brief poll popping up on your screen asking a question about the Q&A. But thank you so much to our wonderful audience with your questions. And I just welcome back Spirit of Grace for a final song. We're ready for you, Spirit of Grace.
Don't know if you can.
I hit
hear us?
Can you hear us now?
There you are. Yes.
Okay, sorry. The unmute.
We hit the unmute button and it wouldn't work. Okay. Anyway, hi. Just to sum things up, we want to say, we're so blessed to be a part of this. We want to give a big shout out, not only to all of the panelists and all of the readers, but to Kirsten, who has worked so hard and given so much of herself to make this all possible. So we just want to say, keep fighting the good fight. To Brandon, to Joaquin, to Daniel, we love you. And we're so grateful for you for sharing your stories and for telling your truths and for not being ashamed to do so. it means the world to us. And I believe if the comments are anything to be looked at, that it means the world to more than just us. To our DA, to Jessica, thank you. To all of our readers for standing in someone else's shoes and showing that empathy and love and compassion is more than anything in the world. So, Chrissy?
Well, we would like to offer this last song as an inspiration to everyone who is fighting whatever kind of fight that you're fighting. And we would like to inspire you to just hold on. Freedom will allow, and I ain't gonna give up now.
Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
Oh, on my way to rest, and the whole way I'll be blessed. Keep your eyes on the prize.
Hold on.
Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
Let me tell you now, one thing we did right was the day we started to fight.
Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
Oh, freedom is his name. It's gonna be our greatest fame.
Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on.
Thank you so much. And finally, on behalf of Motus Theater, we want to again thank our Motus Monologists, Brandon Wainwright, Daniel Guillory, and Juaquin Mobley. Our guests, District Attorney Michael Dougherty and Jessica Howard from the ACLU of Colorado, and Motus's powerful contributing artists, including Motus Theater's artistic director, Kirsten Wilson, singers, Spirit of Grace, and of course, poet Dominique Christina, and my fellow co-host and monologist, Joaquin Mobley. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you were moved by our stories, I hope you will share the video of this event with others. We will send all of you a link to this performance in a few days, in addition to the survey link, so you can share your feedback with Motus. We hope you will also consider contributing to Motus Theater. So without further ado, goodbye and thank you all. That ends our program for today. Those of you joining us on Zoom will have your emails added to our mailing list so you can join us in the future for our future performances. We appreciate you spending your afternoon with us and honoring Dr. King's legacy by choosing to work together to revision justice in our country. Thank you. Blessings.